My name's Michael Korn. I'm from QuickScreen, and I'm going to tell you the story of how I've got this business up and running from 4 years ago when I was a student at the Royal College of Art studying design and engineering. It's like a want to be James Dyson course is how I saw it, and I still would like to be something along the lines of what he's doing. The case study, what I'm going to talk to you about, is how I've gone from being a student to a startup. How the idea went from being a concept, just a drawing, to a patented product. How the prototypes that I built on my desk using cut-up bits of card are now products that are in production. And how from the initial sales, which were all done by myself after I had physically built the product myself and met the customer and then delivered it to the customer, we now have a distribution network that is international, but predominantly initially in the UK, where we have other people doing all of that on our behalf, and how we and I are maintaining that entrepreneurial pioneering spirit now and into the future as we want to grow the business. I think I can start maybe with video number 1, please, so you can all see what the product is. So here you can see it's a portable, retractable room divider. It's actually the world's most portable, retractable room divider. It's a screen. You can pull it out anything up to 3.4 meters. One of the magic things is you can bend it anywhere. That's because it's using this brilliant technology. This is a UK material innovation. It's been around for 10 years. It's a typical story of a business that had an invention but didn't really know what to do with it. And the QuickScreen is the first product to have been developed using this material. So this is called roller tube, and the QuickScreen uses it, as you saw in the video, along the top and the bottom of the screen to enable it to roll up. Now, in this talk, I'm going to go through and hopefully, in telling my story, dispel some of the myths that are around startups and entrepreneurship. So the things written up there are tongue-in-cheek. I don't believe them, but I just wanted to make sure that there was not a language barrier. The first one being, it is impossible for a student to turn their project into a reality, a commercial reality. A lot of people say to do this, you need obviously to have a professional, a design professional that charges and does this as a full-time career, or somebody who's done it before, and you're a student, you just stick to your drawings and get a proper job. And I think that you can replace the word student there with any type of entrepreneur who previously hasn't been an entrepreneur. And there are many successful entrepreneurs that came from maybe being a housewife or being a lawyer or being an accountant or something like this, which is very different to this world. I'll tell you my story. This is me with less hair as a student, I think 5 years ago. And it's the first QuickScreen, essentially. This was a prototype. I used tape measures that were bent back on themselves, and I thought, hey, we can have a really good pull-out screen here. That would be really useful for lots of places. And this is it now, which is the same thing, but replacing the bent-back tape measure with the roller tube. And this means you can have a full-scale room divider. And the bit that I think is important is that throughout this whole process, I, the inventor or the student or the designer or the person who had the idea has always stayed in the center and driven it through, taking into account issues in production, in sales, the user insights, and also coming up with the ideas. And I think that's hugely, hugely important. Okay. And I guess here I can talk about the British Library and what they are doing with the IP centres and with your IP centres. You're supporting those inventors. You're encouraging them to be able to keep going with their journey and not stop at the point where, once you've done your drawing, you then have to keep going. So all the support you can have is brilliant. Another misconception is you can't develop a product without raising finance or licensing the idea. Now, many people say this, but I think that these are possibly two very dangerous routes to go down. If you raise finance, then at the early stages, you need to start dressing up your proposal, your offering, your invention. And you need to start selling what it can do instead of addressing the issues about what it can't do. And the early stages of a business are quite gritty and difficult and risky. And if you're trying to tell people how great it is and they believe you, well, then you haven't solved that core problem, and you might end up spending the rest of your time ignoring that problem but solving the easy problems. So you can keep telling the story. And then you end up with a bubble that is going to burst because you've never actually addressed that core problem that really is quite difficult and gritty, and you know it. But if you're trying to make it seem valuable, you don't tell anybody about it. And then licensing the idea, this in theory can be a beautiful concept. You've got the invention and somebody else has the capabilities of making it and taking it to market, and you marry together, and then you will do very well. But in my analogy, from my personal experience, because we went down that route and we decided not to do it, is that it can be more like giving your child up for adoption. So this is your baby, you've nurtured it, you understand it, and then you hand it over to somebody else to take it forwards. And that, there's a risk associated with that. They won't understand it, they won't nurture it as much, they won't care about it as much as maybe the inventor themselves will. So I think it's always good to support and encourage the inventor to keep going with it, because they are the person that will, against all odds, try and make it happen. And here are some examples of how we did that on our own. And the lesson from this is one of bootstrapping. And that parallels with some of the entrepreneurial attitude that the British Library IP Centre have had to do in getting their centre off the ground. But you really have to try every angle. Apply for grants, we got 1 or 2. Win awards, we got quite a lot of them. And all of this money helped. And it also, the endorsement helped get the larger organisations to support us in the early days. So here are some quick screens that we built for the NHS, who paid us for the products that they then trialled as part of one of their programs. So then we got the products and the prototypes paid for, we got the trials paid for, and we got free publicity. So it was brilliant. And actually the result of this was the NHS, or the organisations within the NHS, saying that quick screen dramatically helped isolating infected patients in hospitals. And that was the start of our journey in commercialising this product, which was initially to hospitals. Then another thing that you hear people say is that, so we had our idea, we had the product, we now needed to get it made. And people say, oh, well, you have to go to China. If you've got an invention, you get the products made in China. Now, actually, we didn't do that, and I'm very glad we haven't. I think it would have been much, much more costly, and I don't know if we ever would have managed to get the business off the ground. The reason why it's more costly is because of the time associated with having to manufacture abroad, and especially in China. I would have to fly to the factory, and then I'd be speaking in a different language. But then when we got the parts made, which, yes, would be a fraction of the price, we'd have to order much larger volumes, and we'd have to wait a couple of months for them to get to the UK, by which point we'd have a whole load of product, we'd try them, and we'd want to then change them, so I'd have to fly back to China and wait another 3 months. Whereas the alternative now is I drive to the factory 2 hours away, and I'm there at least once a week, and we're making changes all the time. And when you're an early business and you can't afford to invest completely in design, you need to make and sell what you can, then making it in the UK, I think, is really is essential. And here are some examples. So we have we're very proud to be completely made in the UK, and this is our assembly partner who we found, and also roller tube that's UK manufactured. And I think this is something maybe that the PATLIBs you should be celebrating, because not only are you encouraging entrepreneurship, which is a brilliant thing and is the thing that's going to keep our economies alive, but these are product-based businesses often. If it's associated with patents, then often it's a product, and that then relates to something that actually will help rebalance our economies. Because if we're able to make products and sell them internationally, as we are, that really does help rebalance our economies. And product-based businesses have a natural multiplier effect. You're employing people in your business. You then have other support businesses with manufacturing that are employing people that are very likely to have otherwise been unemployed. And then there's lots of other support services around that which are likely to be based in your country, and thus help the local economy. And the next challenge for us was selling. Now, people often say you can't sell a new product on your own, especially into large organisations. So we were up against selling to the NHS, which is known as being a very difficult organisation to penetrate. But when we looked into it, what was involved in selling, we found actually what you needed was passion, belief, energy. You just had to tell your story to lots of people and listen to the nurses, listen to the matrons to understand what problems they had. And there was no one better to do that than us. You needed to have a lot of drive, and that was literally drive, because we found ourselves driving all over the country to meet all the different hospitals and speak to all the different nurses and matrons and reference nurses and matrons that they suggested. And it was through this that we managed to now sell the product. This is just ourselves, myself and my business partner, into 50 NHS trusts where they've adopted the quick screen as a novel way of flexibly dividing up their open plan wards. So this isn't just for isolating infected patients, but also for segregating men and women, creating private areas, creating areas for relatives who are mourning their relatives and things like this. And a hospital is the prime example of open plan spaces that sometimes need to be closed off and sometimes need to be opened up. So this is what we've done selling to the NHS. And now, as I said at the beginning, we have a distribution partner. So it's the second largest supplier to the NHS of furniture, and they're now selling for us. So there's 7 guys on the road every day selling quick screens to hospitals, which is brilliant because it was quite tiring. Then another misconception is only large established companies can sell new products and sell into new markets. So we've done the NHS, we've proved that we could start selling to the NHS, and I think because we believed in the product and we understood it so much, we were better than anybody else. But now we have other markets. We have using the, I hope you can all see this okay, using the retractable screens in offices, in exhibitions, in stadium, in dentists and care homes, and this is now what we are doing. We are exhibiting and talking to people about the needs that they have for dividing up their open plan spaces in all these different markets. I had all these things here about the British Library and how in each of these areas have helped, but maybe I'll talk about them at the end. So here we have the screen. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to bring today, but it's the screen that the British Library have just bought. And they've bought a number of these to exhibit the events that they have so that they can sell what they're doing and explain to other people in the library what they're doing, but also practically it helps divide up the space that they have so that they can create this hub for entrepreneurship, which sometimes needs private areas, sometimes needs big areas with maybe a backdrop, networking areas, and they can reconfigure the space as needs be. Now I've got a lot of areas here where I think the British Library was incredibly helpful to myself as a startup entrepreneur, mostly around being a place to network with other entrepreneurs, learn their stories, learn from successful entrepreneurs and hear their advice, and then that gives you the confidence to go through this on your own, because the challenge that we've faced is that everything we've done for the first time, and we've had to do it very confidently, but yet learn very quickly from our mistakes. And so having the IP centre and being a library in the centre of your town, being somewhere accessible, is brilliant. It's a bit like having a clubhouse in a tennis club. I was thinking of an analogy, but I don't know if this is quite right, especially given that I never really played tennis. But you have people that are playing a sport and then they come in for a break and they learn about things and then they go back out there again. So maybe there's another analogy there someone's got. But that is what I feel an IP centre is, and it's hugely, hugely valuable to the country and to your community and to all the people who really have these ideas and ability to start up a business but just need the support.